Hey there. So, if you ever use a check in Nigeria for business, for personal stuff, you're going to want to listen up. The Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, has just dropped some massive new rules, and they're designed to tackle a really old problem. So, yeah, let's get right into it and break down exactly what this all means for you. And this is really the big question, right? Are you actually prepared for this shift? Because come November 2025, the way Dudge checks are handled is, well, it's getting a complete overhaul. And the consequences are serious. Getting caught out on this could be a very expensive mistake. So, why the big change all of a sudden? Well, to really get why these new rules are so important, you first have to understand the problem they're trying to fix. And believe me, for years, the banking system has been dealing with this really damaging, really persistent issue.
You don't even have to take my word for it. The CBN's own document right here lays it all out. The key thing is that whatever they were doing before, like the old Dishonored Checks Act, it just wasn't working. People kept writing checks they couldn't back up, and that just erodes trust and gums up the works for the entire financial system. So the CBN basically said, okay, enough is enough.
So, what was their answer? The central bank put out this brand new, really comprehensive rulebook. And look, this isn't just some small tweak or a minor update. We're talking about a fundamental change in how these situations are going to be handled from now on. And there you have it. These new guidelines, kicking in from November 2025, are the CBN's direct shot at cleaning up the entire system. The goal is to make checks something people can actually trust and rely on again. And really, what it all boils down to couldn't be simpler. It's all about two things: deterrence and integrity. The whole point of these new rules is to make people think twice, really think, before writing a bad check. And by doing that, they hope to rebuild confidence across the board. Okay, so to really get a handle on all of this, we need to be on the same page. We've got to speak the same language as the CBN. They're being super specific with their terms now, and trust me, understanding these definitions is absolutely crucial. All right, first on the list, the big one, a dud check. Now, under these new rules, this term has a very, very precise meaning. It's only a check that bounces because there wasn't enough cash in the account to cover it. That's it, period. Nothing else counts. And this is where it gets really important to see the difference. A dud check is super specific, but a dishonored check? That's a much wider net. A check can be dishonored for all sorts of reasons. Maybe the signature's wrong, the account is dormant, or it's just too old. But it's only when the reason is insufficient funds that it becomes a dud check. And that's the one that sets off all these new heavy penalties. Which brings us to this brand new and honestly pretty scary classification: the serial dud check issuer. The definition itself is dead simple, but the implications are severe. All it takes is for you to issue just 3 dud checks, and you've earned yourself this lovely new title. So, what happens if you do get slapped with that serial issuer label? Well, this is where the CBN's new 3 strikes and you're out policy kicks in. And let me tell you, it comes with some incredibly serious consequences. And here's how it plays out. It's pretty straightforward. The first dud check? Okay, you're on the radar. A second one? That's a huge red flag. But that third dud check? That's it. That's the final strike. The system automatically tags you as a serial issuer, and bam, the penalties hit you instantly. And how long do those penalties last? 5 years. That is a 5-year ban from some of the most basic parts of the financial system. Just let that sink in for a moment. Okay, so what does being banned for 5 years actually mean? Well, for starters, you can't write or receive checks anymore. You're also totally cut off from getting any new loans or credit from any bank in the country. Oh, and you're also forbidden from opening a new current account. It's basically a complete financial lockout. But here's the kicker. It's not just customers who are on the hook here. The CBN is making absolutely sure that the banks themselves have a massive incentive to play by these new rules. The penalties for them, they're just as tough, maybe even tougher. Yeah, this is a huge shift in responsibility. Banks are now required, mandated, to report every dud check, to run status checks on new customers, and to enforce the ban on serial issuers. There's no more wiggle room, no more looking the other way. And here's how they're enforcing it. The minimum penalty for a bank that fails to block a serial issuer is a staggering 5 million naira. And that's not a one-time fine. That's per infraction. And it doesn't stop there. What if a bank gets lazy and doesn't run the proper background check on their database before opening a new current account? Well, that's a minimum penalty of 3 million naira.
And even something as simple as failing to report a dud check, that carries its own heavy price tag, a minimum fine of 2 million naira. And again, that's for every single time they get it wrong. The message from the CBN to the banks is crystal clear. You either comply or you pay up. Big time.
All right, so we've talked about the problem, we've gone through the new rules, and we've seen the pretty massive penalties. So now, let's just boil this all down to the absolute must-know points that you need to remember to stay on the right side of all this. Think of this as your survival guide. First and most obvious, always know your balance before you write a check. Simple. Second, when you get a new checkbook, actually look at the terms and conditions. Your bank is now required to spell all these new rules out for you. And finally, and if you remember nothing else, remember this. 3 strikes, 5 years. 3 dud checks equals a 5-year ban. It's that simple and that serious. And all of this really leaves us with one big question, doesn't it? With such tough rules for customers and these huge fines for banks, this is easily the most aggressive move we've ever seen to tackle the dud check problem. So, will it actually work? Is this finally the thing that will restore faith and integrity to the check system in Nigeria? I guess only time will tell.